All right. So it's a small audience, so I would like very much first in the beginning, before I even introduce myself, to ask you a few questions, since I don't know if I should do the presentation very technical, or should I more speak about the Oracle Public Cloud. How many of you have worked with Oracle Public Cloud or know about Oracle Public Cloud? Can you please raise your hand? Only one, two, only one. All right. How many of you want to know about the Oracle Public Cloud? Obviously, because you're here, you chose my presentation. And how many of you are DBAs? I want to know how technically. Sorry, can you stay there? 1 to 5. And how many of you are the rest developers? Everybody's Oracle background. All right. Okay, so I understand. So the presentation will be about how to migrate your database to the Oracle Public Cloud. The Oracle Public Cloud is very big. At the moment, there is not a single presentation that can cover anything on the Oracle Cloud. It's so many different parts of the cloud that even if you look at the database cloud, which I'm going to present, it's still a bit complex. Not in terms of what you can buy, but in terms of different options. I work for Accenture. I'm leading the global database practice in Accenture. Well, I'm based in Finland, but I have a global position, so I'm a DBA as well. I'm Oracle Certified Master and Oracle ACE Director, and I blog on the internet about Oracle DBA issues, more about the DBA profession. And before we proceed, I would like to mention that we're having a conference in Barcelona in 1 month, next month. It's from the Enkite group. It's called E4. That's the first time we're having E4 in Europe. It's been always in the US. Enkite is a DBA company which we acquired a couple of years ago, and through the acquisition we got like 100 top DBAs in Accenture. The presentation will cover 3 different topics. The first part, the major part, will be about the public database cloud. The second one will be about the database in-memory advisor. I'll explain how you can use the in-memory advisor to estimate how you can set up your database in the cloud. It will be primarily oriented about the in-memory option in 12c, in 12.102. And if I have time, I'll show you how you can validate your database in the cloud using real application testing and the SQL Tuning Advisor. And you can interrupt me anytime and ask me questions. It's fine. I prefer that you just raise your hand and to ask me something if something is unclear, or if I speak too quickly, or you'd like to know something in details. The Oracle Database Cloud has 4 options. So you can buy 4 different things from the cloud. You can buy DBaas, database as a service. You can buy Schema service, just a schema. You can buy a virtual image, which means basically an empty machine, an empty virtual machine, and to do all the installation. Or you can buy the Exadata service. It's very much like DBaas, but based on Exadata. And in the future, Oracle are coming with a managed DBaas, which principally means that the 12c databases will be managed both by clients of Oracle and Oracle. All right. So the first one is DBaas. Probably is the most popular, the most common one. And when you go to such a service, you want to buy a database from the Oracle Cloud, you have 4 different editions. And those are not the normal Oracle editions, but very close. You have the Standard Edition, which is the Oracle Standard Edition. You have the Enterprise Edition, which contains everything from the Enterprise Edition without any options on top of it. You can come with a third one called High Performance Service, which is Enterprise Edition with everything on top except 3. With High Performance, you don't get in-memory option, you don't get RAC, and you don't get Active Data Guard. So actually it contains all the licenses. And with this option, I'll compare Oracle with Amazon. But with Amazon, you have this bring your own license model, which is the most common one. With Oracle, it's exactly the opposite. You cannot bring your licenses. Everything contains the licenses. And you have the option of the Extreme Performance Service, which is actually everything. So you can do anything with the database, everything that the Oracle database can offer to you. And you have 2 different options, the General Purpose Compute and the High Memory Compute, which is something with very small difference. You pay for 7.5 gigabytes per 1 Oracle CPU for the General Purpose Compute, and you get 15 gigabytes memory for the High Memory Compute. So two different ways. When you pay for 1 Oracle CPU, OCPU on the top left means Oracle CPU. Oracle CPU means the equivalent of one Intel Xeon CPU, which is hyper-threaded with 2 threads. So that's the definition of Oracle CPU. And if you buy one Oracle CPU, you get 7.5 gigabytes of memory, of RAM. But if you take the high memory compute, you get the double, 15. So those are the options. You have 10 options: general purpose or high memory. Okay? So standard edition, some limitations. Standard edition, it's only available for 11G release 2 in the cloud, although standard edition was released by Oracle for 12C. Enterprise edition, it contains everything in the enterprise edition. And for enterprise edition high performance, as I said, you have everything what you can think of, all the options which you buy separate, like partitioning, real application testing, anything you can think of. Security option, except the free ones, except the active data guard, in-memory, and RAC. But if you buy the high performance, you get the whole package. So anything, you can use any feature of Oracle. But it's available only for 12C. All right. What about storage? So you buy an Oracle database, but you need storage for the database. You can choose the size of the storage in gigabytes up to 1 terabyte. And Oracle will back up the database automatically. It can be backed up and with retention policy for 14 days if you use cloud storage. Cloud storage is a separate option in the Oracle public cloud. You can buy storage from Oracle. But if you don't have storage from Oracle, if you just want to buy the database, you get what you have on the machine, on the VM. And if you back up your database to the machine locally, you have only 1 week of retention for the backups. So everything that is 1 week older is being wiped away. But you can choose also not to have backups. Here is how it looks like on the screen. So when you open a browser, ordering the instance is quite simple. You need to fill in 3 things like instance configuration, the database config, and the backup. Basically the instance name, you choose the compute shape. In this case, the compute shape is OC3, meaning that I take one Oracle CPU, the cheapest one with 7.5 gigabytes of RAM. And you set up the storage and the passwords. Once you do that, you have a database instance on a virtual machine with 1 CPU. And with Oracle, an interesting thing is that you pay either per day or per month. Sorry, per hour. Correction, yes. Who said per hour? Well, I think you deserve this one. Yes, per hour, yes. All right, so virtual image. Virtual image is something like a machine. You get a virtual machine from Oracle, which is empty, like really empty. You have to install the Oracle binaries. You have to transfer them first, and you don't have even the X windows. So you don't have even graphical interface. Not very common, but cheaper. If you look at the price, for example, look the per month price for extreme performance, it's $3,000. If you look at the other one, it's $5,000. Almost twice cheaper. But then it's like you manage your own machine from Oracle's data center. The Exadata service. The Exadata service also has 3 options. You can have a quarter rack, you can have half a rack or full rack. And they also contain all the licenses. The only issue, what probably one will face with Oracle Exadata Cloud Service is that you must dedicate at least 25 to 28 CPUs. So the minimum price per month is $50,000. 70,000, correction. It's the minimum price. You cannot get it cheaper. You cannot get Exadata with 1 Oracle CPU. And those licenses, the price contains all the features of Oracle. One other issue is that it's not available in Europe. So if you want to get Exadata from the cloud, it's available only from 2 data centers in the US. Only from 2 places. So your data will be in the US. It's an issue for many clients. And here is what you get for quarter rack, for half rack, or full rack. It's very much close to the reality. Except with the full rack, you have 14 different storage servers, but if you buy it from the cloud, you get only 12. The other 2 are reserved by Oracle for some internal stuff. So Oracle is also dedicating its Exadata resources, but only in terms of maximum speed, so maximum SQL bandwidth, maximum disk IOPS, so no guarantee for the minimum. You see how much memory you get for a quarter rack, almost half a terabyte, almost a terabyte for half a rack, and almost 2 terabytes for a full rack. And when you order it, it's very much like DBaas. So the Exadata service, you have to put a name. You have to choose if you want to have quarter rack or half a rack or full rack. The password is the name of the database and some storage information. It's quite simple to get the service. So what happens when you buy Exadata storage? By default, Oracle will create you 3 disk groups. There will be one which is very small. It's used primarily for the clusterware files, and it's called DBFSDG. You have one called data and one called FRA. So if you choose local backups, then Oracle will reserve 40% of the space to the data disk group and the other 60 to FRA. However, if you decide to choose storage from the cloud, not from the Exadata machine, then 80% will be allocated to data, and only 20 will go to FRA, basically for the flashback recovery area, archive logs backups. An interesting thing is that once you activate such a service, the only way to get more storage is via Metalink service request. What happens with the backups? Automatically backups are scheduled for 1 minute past 1 o'clock. And I first tried to figure out what time is that. It was California time, so not very convenient for Europe. But I noticed also that in the documentation it says that you can modify the timing. The backups are done via cron jobs, so you can go to the cron job and modify the text file of the cron job, and you can set up the backup at your convenient time. Here, Oracle preserves the backups a bit longer. For the cloud, for 1 month. So if you back up your database to the cloud, it's 1 month. For if you use only local storage, it's 8 days. And the last one, the fourth one, is the schema service. The 3 options: you can get the 5 gigabytes with one schema, like one database user, 20 or 50 gigabytes. And you cannot access the schema using SQL Plus or any other client tools like SQL Developer or Toad. Why? That's how Oracle has made it. So it's meant for. It's a question also I'm asking. I don't know why. It's a restriction that Oracle has made. It's I don't know why. The answer is I don't know. I've been trying to find out the answer to that, but nobody seems to even explain. It's not very commonly used. That's what I know. I don't know many clients who have schema service. It's one which is available, by the way, for free 1 month free testing usage. So you can get trial for the schema service. All right. So you can sign for a trial subscription if you would like to, and you can see what you can test. There are several cloud services that Oracle offers for free, like testing for a certain period of time, 60 days, 30 days, depending on the service. So what kind of tools does Oracle offer for the cloud? It very much depends on what you use. So if you use DBaas, there is a new backup utility. It's an API, which is used for taking up backups. And for Exadata, there is another one called OBCup. And same for recovery. OREC. And if you would like to use patching, if you would like to patch your database on your own, not with the help of Oracle, there are other utilities. So a DBA must get acquainted with the new commands. It's interesting also that for monitoring, there is a graphical tool. But if you'd like to monitor Exadata, you have to use Oracle Enterprise Manager. And about the storage. So there are different ways of buying the storage, and it's not as simple as it looks on that slide. But if you would like to get archive storage from Oracle, the price is 1/10 of a cent if you buy it from Oracle. And you can see what the same storage costs if you buy it from other vendors. This is archive storage. That's not the normal storage. Oracle has some certain limitations. If you go deeper into documentation, you'll probably see that Oracle will, you have to pay to Oracle if you delete your data too quickly, meaning less than 90 days. You need to keep your data for at least 90 days. If you delete it in advance, Oracle will charge you. Also, if you store very small files on the Oracle cloud, Oracle will charge you for small data or small files. I think the limit is 10 megabytes. 10 megabytes. If you have something smaller than 10 megabytes, then you pay in addition to that. But if you buy archive storage, it's extremely cheap. This is like $12,000 for 1 petabyte per year. It's extremely cheap if you think what you'd pay to EMC or Amazon. All right. I think that's about the cloud, basically about the Oracle Database Cloud. Any questions on that? Because I'll proceed to in-memory and now to DBA stuff. Well, one benefit I would say is that if you'd like to build your own database, you need the server, you need the storage. Yes. And here you don't need to buy a server. You don't have to bring a server to cable it in the data center. You don't need storage to connect to it. And if you decide to do it yourself and you need it only for 6 months or for 3 months for some proof of concept, what do you do with the server and the storage afterwards? With Oracle, you can just cancel the subscription and then you don't pay anymore. Good question. Legally, to whom the data belongs. Legally, I cannot answer such a question. I don't know to whom the data belongs legally. Depends where the data is. I think this is very much now a legal discussion, and depending on the country laws and regulations, the answer would be different, I would say. I don't think that all countries have similar laws. In the European Union, there is one law. In the US, another law. So that's one question that clients are also asking, what happens with the data. And there are several questions for which even I'm searching for answers. I'm curious, for example, what happens if after 5 years or 10 years, you would like to ramp down your cloud service. How do you have the guarantee that your data is deleted, wiped away? It doesn't exist anywhere. It's being totally removed. How can you be sure that still your data won't be copied or synchronized or somewhere in tape? You never know. So those are questions. Yes, please. Yes, those are questions that everybody is asking, and that's a relatively new thing. So what will happen in the future, and what's the responsibility? Whose responsibility would be to answer questions about the presence or the absence of the data? It's more a law conversation than technical conversation. Yes, please.
Hello. Does the technical support included in that all the prices that you mentioned in the presentation?
By technical support, you mean service requests? Yes.
Well, on all levels, on the server, hardware level, and the data centers.
Yes,
and
yes.
the
From
database.
on hardware level, yes, you don't have any responsibility. So if something gets broken on hardware level, CPU panics or something happens, it's not your responsibility. But your responsibility would be to create the database, maybe to monitor the database.
And you have all permissions like a database administrator.
Yes, exactly. And that's the slide I wanted to show you. It shows a comparison between Amazon Cloud. I don't know if you have used the Amazon RDS. Here is slight comparison. In Amazon, you don't have DB access. You don't have sysdb. You cannot connect to the machine. While with Oracle, you have root access. You have root. You have sysdb. You have DB account. Like in Amazon, if you would like, for example, to grant select privileges on some of your tables, it's not like as simple as with Oracle. You connect to SQL Plus and you just type grant select on emp to somebody. With Amazon, they have their own packages. They do have their packages called AWR RDS underscore grant. I don't remember the names. They're developed by Amazon, and you must know those packages, and then you grant. You run procedures from those packages where you give input parameters like what object from to It's like additional administration on top of the normal Oracle database.
Okay, but if you have that rules access, but you have some issues that you cannot resolve by yourself, even you have that permission, do you have some support included?
Yes, you can create a service request with MOS, with My Oracle support.
So that's for free? Oh, included
Well,
in the
I
price.
don't know for free, but it's part of the contract what you have.
Okay.
But
thanks.
there is no single person whom you can call and he will be responsible for fixing your issues.
And the some communication community, I mean to say, also yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. So look at the comparison, for example, that with the prices it's a bit tricky because here it's the flagship prices. So if you'd like to buy the most expensive, the best possible option, what Amazon and Oracle offers, but it's comparing a little bit apple to oranges. The pricing is a little bit different. And Amazon here has bring your own license. So Amazon offers only the hardware and the software. The licenses, you must have them. And while with Oracle, the best part with Oracle is that you don't have to buy new licenses. Of course, this might be also not so good if you own the licenses and if you would like to buy a database in the cloud, but Oracle might be enough flexible with you to negotiate with you some transferring of licenses to cloud licenses. In the cloud, development tools like database development tools, like you can use Enterprise Manager. You can connect to any Oracle Cloud public database using Enterprise Manager, but it requires that you have at least version 5, release 5 of Enterprise Manager. That's 12.105 or 13C. So they contain an additional pack called Oracle Hybrid Cloud Management Pack, and that's needed for managing anything in the cloud. That's one of the tools, but you can use anything like SQL Developer or Toad if you'd like to. You connect to this database like a normal database. All right. Have half an hour left. So Oracle in-memory. Has anyone tested the in-memory feature of Oracle 12c, of Oracle 12? Yes. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So 12c has a new option, actually 12.102. It has a new option called in-memory option, and it's if you has worked with SAP HANA or understands a column of compression of in-memory data, it's like, think of 90 degrees. You have a table, a table with rows, and you'd like to have the same but at 90 degrees. So you take all the values of one column and you store them like one vector in memory. So think of a big table with 10 million rows, and you have a column called gender, and you have either F or M, so 2 values, right? But if it's 10 million rows, you have probably F and M 10 million times. If you decide to have the columnar version of Oracle database, you have this column with only 2 values in memory and pointers. So very highly compressed. So the in-memory option is a very interesting one, but once you get it, you have few questions. So what tables do I want to put in memory? Sometimes, usually you have big databases with hundreds of tables, with thousands of tables. If you have SAP or Fusion apps, you have tens of thousands of tables. And of course, putting every table in memory would require a lot of memory. So the in-memory column store will be very big. It comes on top of the SGA. And how big PGA should you have then? How big SGA? So if you probably have in-memory option used, then you probably don't need as big SGA as before. You don't need so big cache. And the answers to those questions, I've seen that they don't really exist. You can, by testing, figure out, but it's really extensive testing. So there is one thing which comes on top of 12c. It's called the Oracle In-Memory Advisor. And it's not part of the Oracle 12c database. You need to install it separately. You download it from MOS. There is a node, and the good thing about it is that it doesn't need any licenses. So the in-memory option, it needs a license, but not the in-memory advisor. And the in-memory advisor, once you run it against the database, it will give you some suggestion. That's an output, a screenshot of recommendations. It will show you how many candidates, meaning how many tables, will benefit from the option, how many objects are not eligible, like system objects, like the second row, 8 objects, and at the end it will tell you the estimated benefit of placing those objects into in-memory. So Oracle claims here in this example that 355 would benefit. That's just an example, but it's a very nice visual way of you seeing if my database will be a candidate for the in-memory option. It can be used on any database, at least 11.203. And of course it's recommendations, and they can be implemented only on 12.102 because only 12.102 contains the in-memory option, right? It's just an estimate. This is not some mathematical precise formula. It's just an estimate. And it uses current, or the estimation is based on some current statistics like the cost of eliminating weight, how big benefit you would have if you compress the data, or how big benefit you would have if you decompress the data. I'll show you soon. So you use in-memory option mostly if you have analytical queries in the database. If you have a database which doesn't have analytical SQL, you forget about it. Even if you run the advisor, it will end with an error message, and it will say there is no analytical activity detected in the database. So in-memory is not meant for any database. The advisor will produce two types of output. One will be an HTML file, and the other one will be a SQL script. And the SQL script is just a SQL script that will implement blindly all recommendations of Oracle. You can run the script, not very wise thing to do. You can of course modify it, but you can directly apply all the recommendations. And the HTML report, it comes with few recommendations, but important ones. It will recommend the size of the in-memory column store, which is important. That's a new initore parameter in the SP file, which you must set. And you don't know in the beginning, should I set it to 1 megabyte, to 200 megabytes, or to 1 gigabyte? You have no idea. Also, the advisor, the HTML file, will show you which objects should be placed so that you have maximum benefit, which tables. It will show you the compression types. There are a few types of compression which are possible within memory. And Oracle will also show you at the end how much performance improvement you'll get from the in-memory option. Sometimes you see no benefit, sometimes you see 100 times the benefit, but you need to test. And the benefit is per SQL. So one SQL might be 100 times faster, the other one can be even slower. And here is the first part of the advisor, which shows here what percentage of the database has analytical activity. So 36%, bottom down. That's a database where more than 1/3 of the activity is analytical SQL. So that's a very good candidate. I would say any database with more than 20% would be a good candidate. Just you have to find the tables or the columns which need to be placed in memory. How does it work? You download the zip file from MOS, and you unzip it, and you run one SQL file. It's very simple. Basically, you create a new DB user called IAMAdvisor. There is one package, which is the main part of the advisor, and it creates one directory. Quite simple. You run the file, and at the end it will say installation and setup complete. It takes seconds. You can get some error messages once you run it. Oracle, when you run the advisor, the first one which I mentioned, if there is no analytical activity in the database, it will end up with an error message. There will be no HTML file. There will be nothing. Just an error message. At that point you can stop. And, or you can choose a wider period of time. Once you run the advisor, Oracle asks you for how long period of time in the past would you like to run the advisor. And you have to give a number. Minus 60 means in the last 60 minutes. So Oracle will take from the snapshots all the activity in the last 1 hour and will run the advisor against the last half an hour. If you put minus 1000, it will be for the past minus 1000 hours. Sorry, minutes. It's in minutes. So it depends very much on how big period of time you would like to evaluate. Probably 1 hour is a very small one. Probably nothing happened in the last 1 hour. Maybe 1 day or 3 days. But then it will take, of course, longer time to run the advisor. Another error message you can get is that the task already exists. So if you create a task you need to change the name or remove it. Or if you have a pluggable database, a container database, you cannot run the advisor against the root. In 12c you have the root container and you have pluggable databases. You must run the advisor against every individual pluggable database. Here is the script that is being run as the advisor. So you connect the CSDBA, you run a script called IAM-Advisor Analyze and Report. It will first prompt you for a name. So how would you like to call the task? The package DBMS Inventor Advisor has those different procedures. You can create a task, you can add SQL set, and so on. You can reset the parameters even of the advisor, because the advisor, as I said, is not a mathematical formula. It basically assumes something. I'll show you soon what it assumes, and based on those assumptions you can get results. Once you run it, you'll be asked for a value, begin time. So -60 will mean run the advisor for the past 1 hour. Recommendations, as mentioned, they will be in an HTML file. And all the information you'll find in a file called IAM-Advisor_taskname.html. So you'll find from there all the tables that would benefit from the in-memory option. You'll see the percentage of the database time that is analytical. And there will be a table also summarizing the top objects of the database, top tables. What compression and what benefit. Here is an example. So the first SQL statement, starting with 199, it shows that the analytical processing time was 71 seconds, a little bit more than a minute. The estimated analytics processing time, so the improvement would be 64. So basically it says that it will run in 7 seconds. So if you apply for this query the in-memory option for the tables in the query, then from 71 seconds, the query will run in 7 seconds. Meaning 10 times. 71 divided with 7, approximately 10. So that's why you have 10 times 10x on the most right column. And Oracle will also tell us what will be the estimated time if we have 2 GB of memory for the in-memory option, if we have unlimited memory. So column number 3, where it says estimated analytics, whatever, unlimited memory. Of course, nobody has unlimited memory, but basically it says if you can place anything, all the stuff in memory, then you have 10 times performance, but also with the 2 GB of in-memory column store, it would be also 10 times. And you have a similar example for different SQL statements. Those are analytical SQL statements. Also, Oracle will give you recommendations on the tables. Here is a sales table. Oracle gives a recommendation on the compression type, on the estimated size, in-memory size, and the analytics processing time. Oracle here will give us also a ratio for this table. Basically, if you compress it, the queries which run against this table, they will be 7 times faster. They will be, probably not, maybe 5, maybe 8, that's an estimate. And as I said, there are different parameters that very much depend on those mathematical computations. So Oracle assumes 7 different things. Oracle assumes that we would like to have a benefit factor of 10 times faster. So we are not interested in anything that is less than 10 times faster. So Oracle, we assume, if there is something that's 8 or 9 times faster after the in-memory option, we're not interested. Ignore it, which is really good. That's an option that gives real improvement. What is the disadvantage of writing to disk? Sorry, not to disk, but writing to memory. So once you have a lot of data in memory and you update the data, Oracle has to also update the in-memory column store. The data has to be synchronized. Oracle keeps the data in 2 places, right? On disk and in memory. So there is disadvantage. So Oracle assumes that there is a default value of 0.9, which implies that there will be 10% reduction of time because of these double writes. Also, CPU benefit factor. Oracle assumes that we would like to know that there will be twice at least performance with CPU activity. It will be twice faster. So we would like also to benefit from the CPUs on the machine. Also, we would like to have a minimum overall benefit factor. The default is 10.5. It means that we would like to get at least 5% improvements overall. At least 5%. Otherwise, we're not interested. There will be no recommendations. The minimum in-memory object size. So there are tables that have 5 columns. There are tables that have, 5 rows. There are tables that have 5 million rows. We're not interested in putting in memory small tables. No benefit of small tables with few rows. So Oracle will by default ignore any tables less than 64K. And this is calculated based on the statistics in the database. Oracle looks at DBA tables, at the columns, number, rows, and average row length, multiplies them, and checks if the table is a candidate or not. Also, favor high compression. By default, favor high compression is 0, which favors high reduction in analytics times. And large objects, you cannot compress those. You cannot put them in memory. So Oracle by default has this value of 1. So we assume that if there is a large object, there is no point of having it in memory. No benefit. So how to validate that everything really works? SQL Performance Analyzer. What you can do is to run the SQL Performance Analyzer and compare the reports. Once with the in-memory option chose in parameter change. Another way is to use database replay. Database replay is part of RAT, of real application testing. You can run consolidated database replay. So you can see, you can capture the activity on the database as it was, say, 11G or 12C without the in-memory option. You can run the same activity on another hardware, on another machine, or another database which has the in-memory option, and you can compare the results. And how do you compare it with database replay? You're interested in only one thing from the report, DB time. So DB time, you look at the two values, replay and consolidated capture. Consolidated capture means the total combined time in seconds from the respective sources. And replay means the DB time which is consumed by all the PDBs. I'll give an example. You have 3 databases that are 11G. And you'd like to make those 3 databases consolidated into one container database with 3 pluggable databases. And you know how much time it ran in every database before the consolidation. You'd like to know what will happen if you consolidate into 12C with the in-memory option. Here in that case, it took 6,542 seconds for the replay, while the consolidated capture took the combined in the past, in the databases, it was 1,500. So no benefit in this case. There is really no benefit, even everything will become slower. Under normal circumstances, it took 1,500 seconds. You consolidate, altogether it takes 6,500 seconds. Forget it. But what happens if you do with in-memory option and you go with Exadata, for example? You see that the 6,500 turns into 543. Now you see the benefit with the in-memory option. Before, in each database, it was 1,500. Now consolidated, all 3 together, for the whole container, 543. That's a way really to see how the database will benefit, and that's a real test. That's not mathematical estimation anymore. SQL Tuning Advisor. SQL Tuning Advisor doesn't know of the in-memory option. For those of you who use the SQL Tuning Advisor, here is an example. I run an analytical query, and I run the SQL Tuning Advisor against that one. Here is the analytical query on top, on the very top. Select client count style over partition by price. So what I see at the end, the advisor recommends that I create an index. Although I know that if I enable the in-memory option for the sales table, this query will run in fraction of a second. However, the advisor is not at all aware of the in-memory option, not yet. So that's not a way to see if you can benefit from the in-memory option. That's it from me. Question? Yes, please. Yes?
We have the in-memory enabled. We shouldn't use the advisor, the
No,
SQL advisor.
you can use the advisor, but then the advices will be a bit awkward. They'll be a bit strange. They won't be at all related to in-memory option. So you have the in-memory option enabled. Once it's enabled, it's fine, because then the advisor can tell you that you have stale statistics, that maybe you need to use a SQL profile. It's okay. But if you don't use the advisor, even in 12.102, it will never tell you to use in-memory option because it's not aware of it.
Okay.
Did you understand me?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, please. Maybe one more here.
When you put table in memory, you said it is in some columnar form. Oracle creates bitmap indexes for all fields or something different?
No, it doesn't create bitmap indexes.
It's some different way.
It's a different way, yes. It has nothing to do with bitmap indexes.
And how it costs if I have parallel loads from many users to the same table?
You might see some issues, because the processes, the parallel process, might start fighting for the same blocks in memory.
And if I have, for example, a system which loads at night and takes about, for example, 6 hours with 50 parallel processes, and at the daytime it is using many analytical activities. So it will be useful for me or not? I know that it will be useful at the daytime, but what will be at low time?
Well,
at night?
If I understood correctly, that you probably load so much data for 6 hours that Oracle has to catch up and modify all the stuff in the in-memory option. So you probably will have to disable the in-memory option and build the in-memory column store after the process. This is being resolved in the next release of Oracle. In 12.2, then there is a new possibility that you can only apply the delta changes.
Okay,
or you can store it on disk. Thank you. Next, please. Yes?
Is it like additional, yeah?
Yes, it's an option.
What approximately priced for that?
It's approximately as expensive as real application clusters. Expensive. It's like RAC, same price.
You use it at gender column. So maybe
yes, in the example I give you, the bitmap index will solve your problem, but that's just one problem. But for example, if you look only for a certain value in the table for certain people, and you'd like to know their gender, yes. But the in-memory option will help in more complex cases when you have, say, an analytical query which runs nested loops and it does a lot of full table scans on the table, and it scans a lot of data, so then it will help. Not for a single query, not for a simple query.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Next question. All right, if there are no more questions, then thank you very much for the attention and enjoy the afternoon.